Chernobyl Disaster, the worst nuclear accident in history. On April 26, 1986, the world witnessed one of the most catastrophic nuclear disasters in history when reactor number 4 at the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant in Ukraine, then part of the Soviet Union, exploded. The accident caused a massive radiation release, covering vast areas and forcing thousands of people to evacuate immediately. In this video, we take you on a journey through the causes of the disaster, its tragic moments, and its devastating impact on humans and the environment. We will also reveal hidden secrets behind this catastrophe and explore the abandoned city of Pripyat, which has become a ghost town. What really happened on that fateful night? How did nuclear radiation affect Europe? What is the current situation in Chernobyl? Watch the video until the end to discover shocking details and astonishing facts about this nuclear disaster that changed history forever.
April 26, 1986. Just another quiet night in the town of Pripyat, Ukraine. Families were sleeping soundly, the hum of everyday life blanketing them in normalcy. Workers at the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant ran routine tests as they had countless nights before. But this was no ordinary night. This was the night the world changed forever. Deep inside Reactor 4 at the plant, engineers were running safety checks, a test to determine how the reactor would function during a simulated loss of power. Ironically, safety was the goal. But the clock was already ticking toward disaster. A series of procedural errors, combined with critical design flaws in the reactor itself, created a recipe for catastrophe. And soon, physics took over. At 1:23 a.m., it happened. A sudden power surge, a spike so immense it pushed the reactor beyond its limits. In a desperate attempt to control the situation, operators activated an emergency shutdown. But instead of stabilizing, something unexpected occurred. The reactor's flawed design turned the shutdown mechanism into the final match that lit the fuse. Seconds later, the explosion ripped through Reactor 4. The sound shattered the stillness of the night, a deafening roar that echoed for miles. The steel and concrete structure designed to contain it was no match for the raw force of the blast. A column of flame erupted into the sky, while fragments of radioactive material rained down on the facility and its surroundings. For the workers on site, chaos ensued. Those closest to the explosion were killed instantly, their lives snuffed out in the blink of an eye. Others rushed to assess the damage, unaware that every moment spent near the exposed reactor core was slowly killing them. Radiation, a silent, invisible enemy, scorched its way through the air, seeping into everything it touched. In Pripyat, just 3 kilometers away, life continued, at least for a little while. Residents had no idea what was unfolding just beyond the horizon. No emergency alerts, no sirens, no warnings. Children slept peacefully in their beds. Couples dreamed of the future. And all the while, the radioactive plume spread, carried by the wind like a ghost. By the time dawn broke, the true scale of the disaster began to reveal itself. The plant's roof was gone, its reactor core exposed to the elements. Fires burned ferociously, releasing more radioactive isotopes into the atmosphere with every passing hour. The levels of radiation measured were unlike anything ever recorded, thousands of times higher than what the human body could tolerate. And yet, in the face of unimaginable danger, heroes emerged. First came the firefighters, summoned in the dead of night to extinguish the blaze. They arrived with no protective gear, no understanding of what they were walking into. All they saw was fire, and all they knew was duty. As they doused the flames, the radiation attacked their bodies relentlessly. Many of these brave souls wouldn't survive the week. Then came the plant workers, engineers and technicians who volunteered to stay behind, risking their lives to prevent an even greater calamity. They fought to contain the situation, to stabilize a reactor that continued to spew poison into the air. These were ordinary people, men and women with families, hopes, and dreams. Yet they faced the unthinkable with courage, knowing the odds were against them. Their bravery and sacrifice are a testament to the human spirit in the face of unimaginable danger. It took 36 hours before the residents of Pripyat were evacuated. 36 long hours during which children played on irradiated playgrounds, families ate contaminated food, and life continued in blissful ignorance. When the order finally came, buses lined the streets to take them away. They were told it was temporary, a precaution. "Pack for 3 days," they said. But those who left would never return, not to the homes they had loved, not to the lives they had known. As the days turned into weeks, the scale of the disaster became undeniable. Radiation spread far beyond the borders of Ukraine, carried by the wind to Belarus, Russia, and even parts of Europe. Entire forests turned a sickly red before withering away, the ground beneath them poisoned for generations. Rivers and streams carried radioactive particles downstream, contaminating water supplies. And then there was the human toll. The workers, the firefighters, the soldiers, and the civilians exposed to deadly levels of radiation. Many suffered from acute radiation sickness, their bodies ravaged in ways too horrifying to describe. Hospitals in Moscow and Kyiv were overwhelmed with patients, while doctors struggled to comprehend the full extent of the damage. Thousands would die in the months and years to come, their lives cut short by cancers and other radiation-induced illnesses. The Soviet government, faced with one of the worst disasters in human history, scrambled to respond. At first, there was denial, a refusal to admit the full extent of what had occurred. Information was withheld, both from the public and the international community, but the truth could not be hidden for long. On April 28th, 2 days after the explosion, Swedish scientists detected unusually high levels of radiation in the atmosphere. Their findings forced the Soviet Union to acknowledge the incident. The world watched in shock as the scope of the tragedy began to unfold. In the months that followed, an army of workers, known as liquidators, was sent to clean up the disaster zone. Hundreds of thousands of men and women were tasked with decontaminating the area, extinguishing fires, and constructing a massive concrete sarcophagus to encase the remains of Reactor 4. Many of these liquidators would later suffer from health problems, their sacrifices largely forgotten by history. Today, Chernobyl stands as both a reminder and a warning, a haunting testament to the dangers of human error and the devastating power of nuclear energy gone wrong. Yet, even in the shadow of such devastation, there are glimmers of resilience. Wildlife has returned to the exclusion zone, thriving in the absence of human interference. Scientists and researchers continue to study the area, seeking to understand the long-term effects of radiation on the environment and on life itself. And the lessons of Chernobyl have shaped nuclear policy around the world, prompting stricter safety measures and renewed debates about the risks and rewards of nuclear power. Because in the end, the Chernobyl disaster was not just a failure of technology or design. It was a failure of responsibility, communication, and trust. And it is only by confronting these failures head-on that we can hope to prevent history from repeating itself. So, the next time you see an image of the crumbling reactor, or hear the name Chernobyl, remember what it represents. Remember the lives lost, the heroes who rose to meet the moment, and the countless others who bore the cost of a disaster that should have never happened. Above all, remember the lessons it taught us, lessons written in fire, ash, and the silent, invisible menace of radiation.